Han Solo, Captain of the Millennium Falcon. And in exactly 41 years, you're going to learn all about my youth. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hey chumps and chumpettes, welcome to Thumb Together. I'm Andrew Fantasia, and we are going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, together. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. Guys, a new Star Wars movie is out. This is a big deal for me. Star Wars is a big deal for this guy right here. I have been excited for Solo, but I gotta be honest with you, I have not been as excited for Solo as I was for every other Star Wars movie. And I think we can blame that on a combination of things. The first being that Last Jedi just came out. It's still fresh in my mind. I'm still kind of vibrating from that movie because I liked it so much. So to have another movie come out 5 months after is something my body's not used to yet. And it's just something I'm going to have to get used to because Disney is going to be throwing Star Wars at us. We're going to get bukkakied with Star Wars from here on out. So I have to get used to Star Wars sort of hitting me from all sides. And I'm not used to that yet. So my body was like, hey, wait, there's a Star Wars movie already? That's weird. And it didn't give me that sense of like, oh my God, counting down the days. Every day I wake up, I scratch a new day off the calendar and it's almost frickin' time. And I call my friends and I just scream and I don't even say anything and I hang up and they're like, oh, Andrew's excited for Star Wars again. That wasn't happening this time around, but I was still excited. I was still pumped to see these characters. It was still a Star Wars movie and I couldn't wait to dive into it. And at the end of the day, I'm glad I was not that excited for it because, to be perfectly honest with you, this is one of my least favorite Star Wars movies. I don't think it's bad. I don't hate it. I just don't like it as much as I like the majority of the other Star Wars movies. Remember, folks, black and white is not an option when we talk about opinions. So a negative comment does not automatically mean Andrew hates Solo. All right? Now that that's cleared, let's talk about the movie. There are big spoilers, and I won't get into them yet. I'll save that for the spoiler section. But Solo is about Han Solo, and it's about how he grew up on the mean streets of Corellia, and he was befriended by this other fellow orphan, a girl named Kira, played by the mother of my dragons anytime. The two of them are just living it up on the streets and trying to make a life for themselves and trying to escape the planet. And eventually, at the 15-minute mark of the movie, they get off the planet and they live the rest of their lives. And we jump ahead to 3 years later. But in this 3-year interim, Han and Kira have been separated, and now Han is part of the Imperial Army on a backwater planet called Mimbin that is covered in mud. And from there, his adventure begins, and he meets a new crew of characters. We see him meet Chewbacca, we see him meet Lando, and we put him in the middle of this heist that is very Han Solo-esque, and he has this big rip-roaring adventure, and then the adventure ends, and so does the movie. And it's very straightforward and very basic. There are movies like The Last Jedi or like Avengers Infinity War where when you walk out of that theater, you're not saying a damn word because the thought of spoiling what you just experienced for another human being is heartbreaking. And you don't want to do that. Solo has one very small moment, which is very great, and I loved it, but it has one moment that is like, whoa, that's a heavy-duty spoiler. I hope nobody spoils that for people. But other than that, you are in for a very predictable ride. You are in for a story that is much lighter than stuff like The Last Jedi and Rogue One, a story that is just going to take you from beginning, middle, and end, and you can see what's coming a mile away, but that doesn't make it bad. It just makes it that kind of story. So you need to prepare yourself for that kind of story. Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo, he was great. He was fine. I had no problem with him. There was never a point where I was taken out of the movie and I said, that's not Han Solo. That never happened. Granted, he is nothing like the Han Solo we know, but that's the point. So I was never... The illusion was maintained. The fourth wall remained up. So, Alden, sir, congratulations. You have done a good job. You have played a good Han Solo, and I look forward to seeing you in the role again, perchance. Donald Glover, though. Donald Glover, baby. That man played Lando. Wow. Donald Glover is Lando. I'm pretty sure that when he goes home, when he's done childishly gambining in his music career, and then when he's done with his film career and all the acting he does, like in Star Wars and Atlanta and stuff, and he just goes home and he takes off his shoes and he puts his feet up, he's Lando Calrissian. He's like, well, now they'll never know that Donald Glover has been Lando this whole time, baby. Because he nailed that character. The suaveness of him, he nailed the charm, but he also nailed the vulnerability. Lando's a very vulnerable guy. And that's what I was afraid of. I'm like, okay, you got this actor who's very popular right now. The whole world loves him, and he's very handsome. It's hard for a handsome, popular, young guy at the top of the world to portray vulnerable. Because sometimes they just don't know what it's like to be vulnerable. But Donald Glover, kudos to him, the man is a good, talented actor, and he knows, okay, I can't just be sexy and suave all the time. I gotta be vulnerable because that's what Lando's about. And he played those parts well, and he gave us all the facets of Lando that we know and love from The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and Masters of Terras Kasi. It was all there. Every side of Lando was in this performance. Way to go, Donald Glover. Loved it. Chewbacca, Eunice Suotamo is the new guy in the Chewbacca suit, and he's great. He's the new Chewie. He's Generation 2 Chewie, if you ask me. He fills the roles of Peter Mayhew wonderfully. He did a fantastic job. Going into this movie, I thought my favorite character was going to be either Lando or Chewbacca. I was pleasantly surprised when I walked out and I said, you know what? My favorite character was Kira. And it's not because Emilia Clarke is the mother of Mad Dragons. It's because her character and what she represented were, to me, the best parts of the movie. And I can't say more about that without spoiling, but you'll see what I mean. The villain was a little underwhelming, I have to say. Dryden Voss, I liked him a lot. I really liked whenever he was on screen. Paul Bettany played him really well, and he had that really cool mafioso dynamic to him where he was very good to you, and he would put his arm on your shoulder and be like, hey, you doing okay? You need anything? You good? You hungry? You want some wine? I take care of you because I love you, because we're family, and don't screw me over or I will stab you in the throat. He's that kind of guy. And I liked him a lot, but as far as Star Wars villains go, Star Wars villains are a league unto themselves. And this guy was good, but he was not Star Wars villain good. That's something that you got to prepare yourself for as well. This is the first Star Wars movie where the villain is not your everyday Star Wars dude. He's like a villain from any other good movie that's just not a Star Wars movie. But like I said, there are a lot of things about this movie that rubbed me the wrong way, and I'd be remiss to not mention them. Solo is probably going to be one of my lower ranked Star Wars movies. And it's not for any huge reasons. There's just a lot of little reasons that added up and stacked on top of each other. One of the big concerns with me was the cinematography. Star Wars is a very vibrant, vivid, colorful universe. Solo, a Star Wars story, is one of the least eye-pleasing movies I have ever seen in my life. It is one of the least colorful things I've ever seen in my life. I mean, thank God when Lando shows up, because his clothes are like every color you can imagine, so it pops. But other than Lando, every shot is gray and brown. That's it. Just gray and brown smoke. It's like playing a video game back in 2006 when video games were trying to be all edgy. Like imagine Gears of War and Grand Theft Auto 4 had a baby, and that baby sat in mud. And then that mud was the cinematographer for Solo, a Star Wars story. Everything was just covered in bleakness, and it just looked ugly. I'm sorry, I hate to use that word to describe something I love so much, but it did. It looked ugly. And granted, there are some parts that are supposed to look ugly. I mean, they're on a planet that is a mud planet, and everybody is covered in mud, and I get it. It should look unwelcoming, because that's kind of the point. But I have never seen such an ugly movie, and I can't remember how long. And the fact that it's a Star Wars movie to boot, that really bummed me out. Considering that this was supposed to be the fun one, the big fun summer popcorn movie that, you know, it's not like Last Jedi where it's very heady and deep and serious and like has a powerful message. This is just the fun adventure, rip-roaring through space, adventure ho, hooray. For that movie to be the one that's brown and dour, it looks like a gravy boat and a cigarette exploded all over the lens, that just doesn't fit, does it? That doesn't compute. That's like a square peg in a round hole. I don't know if it's possible to have like the Blu-ray version where they clean it up a bit, maybe just make it look nicer, because my God, was this ever dour. But granted, caveat to this, I was wearing 3D glasses. We ended up seeing a 3D movie, and those suckers tint everything already. So I really need to see this again in 2D so I can make sure that this is in fact a problem and it's not just my own stupid 3D glasses getting in my way. A few of the people I spoke to who saw it with me agreed, like, yeah, this is a very brown and gray movie. And for a fun adventure about Han Solo, that was the last thing I expected. Okay, let's go into spoilers now, because I want to talk about my favorite part of the movie, my two favorite parts of the movie, And they're both spoilers. The part that I loved the most about Solo, and I wish that they played with it more, but they didn't, was the relationship between Han Solo and Kira. These two grew up together on Corellia. They were the best of friends. They, had some hanky-panky and some back alleys. But when they leave Corellia, they get split up. For 3 years, they don't see each other. And Han makes it off-world. She gets captured, and we don't know what happens to her. And then finally, 3 years later, Han is with his new crew of friends, and he is brought to Dryden Voss, who's this big criminal gangster. And he, lo and behold, on Dryden Voss's yacht, there's Kira. And she's in this sexy black dress, and she is a lieutenant, a high-ranking member of this mafia. And Han is like, oh my God, you're here. What a small world. Like, I've been literally looking for you for 3 years. That's the only reason I'm here. So I can buy a ship and come back for you. And they have this touching little reunion, but it's very short-lived because Kira is in it with the gangsters now. And Han doesn't know how to react to that. That's not the same sweet, innocent girl that he grew up with. And as the movie progresses, the two of them become close and they rekindle their old passion and what have you. And adventure happens and, it gets fires burning in the loins. Death has a way of doing that. But by the end of the film, Kira has turned against the mafia. She has killed Dryden Voss. She's the one who kills him. And Han tells her, okay, now you're free. You don't have to work for him anymore. Come with me, run away with me, and we'll be together. And Kira's like, okay, sure, we'll be together. You go get the ship warmed up, and I'll be right behind you. Now, like I said, you can all see what's going to happen a mile away. She's not going to go with them. We get this great moment where Kira steals the ring off of Dryden Voss's hand and uses it to contact the boss of this whole syndicate, who turns out to be none other than Darth Maul. I've got plenty of reactions and videos that we've done on the Rebel Scum Podcast channel about this scene. Check those out if you haven't watched them. But Darth Maul was a complete surprise. He was by far the biggest shock of the movie and one of my favorite parts. I never thought I'd see him again in a movie, period, let alone a Han Solo movie. And he was mocapped by Ray Park. He was voiced by Sam Witwer. It's every Maul rolled into one. It was beautiful. And Darth Maul ends up saying to Kira, okay, you're in charge now because Dryden Voss is dead, so come join me on Dathomir, and we're going to work this out. We're going to figure out what to do next. And she says, okay, I'll be right there. And she takes off in the ship, and she joins Darth Maul on Dathomir. And as she's flying away, she sees Han Solo out the window, and they kind of stare at one another as they pass by, and then she leaves. And that's the last we see of her. Now, when I said that the relationship between him and Kira was my favorite part, what I mean is Kira's betrayal, this betrayal right here, is what breaks Han. And it shows the inherent difference between the two characters. After the 3-year time jump, Han Solo is still the same guy we knew on Corellia at the beginning of the movie. He's still wide-eyed and naive, and he's still, I'm going to be the best pilot in the galaxy, just you wait. He's still that kid. But Kira has grown up. Kira is different. She has seen vast changes. She's a criminal now, a high-ranking criminal now. Let's be real. Dryden Voss, the way he was sitting with her and touching her and talking to her, she's kind of like his sex slave almost. Like, there's some dark stuff going on since she's joined that gang. It has not been pleasant for her. So she has grown up, and Han has not. And I loved seeing them play off each other knowing that. And when the movie ended, I was hoping to see Han grow up. I was hoping his arc would be that because this terrible thing happened to him, because the love of his life betrayed him and ran away, he would grow up and he would put up all those walls that we know. He would become that sour, bitter guy who's like every man for himself that we met in that cantina in A New Hope 41 years ago. But what disappointed me was when the movie ended, he was still wide-eyed, happy-go-lucky Han Solo. And I'm like, wait a minute. Did you forget that there was a betrayal, 5 minutes ago? When the betrayal happens, when Kira leaves, Han is like, oh, there she goes, and he's sad, and we see it, and it's powerful, it's nice. But then the very next scene, he's going to play cards with Lando again, and he has his famous card game where he wins the Falcon. It's the second card game in the movie, and the first one was done in a much more impactful way than this one. And this is the one where he wins. So I was like, why did they, blow their load early and give us this really great card scene that in the end didn't really amount to anything? But then when we get the scene that does amount to something, where he does win the Falcon, it's very rushed, and it's just like, I have a good hand and you have a even better hand. I lose. Here's the Falcon. And then that's how the movie ends. Han and Chewie just kind of get in the Falcon, and they're like, okay, we're in the seats where we were in A New Hope. Everybody's probably happy about that. Let's go to Tatooine and join up with a gangster. What could go wrong? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The end. I don't love that ending, man. I don't. Aside from the rushed card game, ending on that note was very counterproductive, I think, to the story that was being told here. This is a story where Han is told by people, don't trust me, or you're going to be sorry. And there's loss everywhere. People lose loved ones. Woody Harrelson's character loses Tandy Newton's character, who was his romantic interest. And Han loses Kira. And for a movie where the climax was Han loses Kira, I don't understand why they ended with, yeah, I'm still happy and naive. I'm like, what happened there? Where's the lesson? Where's Han's arc? What did he learn in this movie? He didn't learn anything if that's how he's going to be. So my favorite part of the movie was sort of undermined by this very bizarre ending they chose to go with. It could have been better. It could have been so much better. Now, granted, I'm willing to give this movie the benefit of the doubt because of the maelstrom of development hell that went down behind the scenes and how Ron Howard basically refilmed this movie almost from scratch less than a year ago. So I understand. This movie was a hot mess from start to finish. I get it. If they could have saved face and benefited from pushing the release date to this December, I would have preferred that. Because I feel like what we got was a patchwork movie with a lot of parts that I really liked, and I did really like a lot of parts, but also a lot of parts that I really disliked. More time may not have helped that, but if it would have, I really wish they had taken that route. So I don't hate Solo, a Star Wars story, and I don't think it's a bad movie, but I think it's not a very good Star Wars movie yet. Let me watch it a few more times, particularly in 2D, so I don't have friggin' shades over my face and I can actually see color, hopefully. And maybe I'll change my tune. And I hope so, because I had a lot of fun with the fun Star Wars stuff. It was all in there. The fun planets and creatures and weapons and new characters, it was all in there to be enjoyed, and I enjoyed it. But the movie that those chocolates were wrapped in, the tinfoil those chocolates were wrapped in, was, on first viewing, kind of a shoddy piece of tinfoil. Take from that what you will. I don't hate it. This is still a fun movie, and I look forward to seeing it again. That is Solo, a Star Wars story. I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you here next time on Thumb Together. Until then, you better buckle up, baby. Damn, I love that Lando.